never thought of herself as someone who ate emotionally. She wasn't stress eating junk food every night. She wasn't skipping meals on purpose. She didn't fit the stereotypes people usually talk about. She just ate fast. Fast mornings, fast lunches at her desk, fast dinners standing at the counter, phone in hand, mind still replaying the day. Eating was something she squeezed in between responsibilities. And stress was something she carried everywhere. Sharon's life looked fine from the outside. Work was steady. Her routine was full. She kept things moving. But her body felt constantly tight, like it never fully relaxed, even when the day was over. Even when she sat down, she wasn't really there. Her thoughts were always ahead of her. One evening, after another long day, Sharon realized she had finished her dinner without tasting any of it. She stared at the empty plate, confused. She wasn't full. She wasn't satisfied. She just felt worn down. That moment stayed with her. Not in a big way, just enough to make her stop and think. A few days later, during a particular stressful week, Sharon tried something different, almost by accident. She left her phone in the other room. She sat at the table. She didn't rush. At first, it felt uncomfortable. Too quiet. Too slow. Her mind kept pulling her back to everything she still needed to do. But she stayed. She noticed the warmth of the food, the texture, the simple act of chewing without distraction. Something unexpected happened. Her shoulders dropped. Not all the way, but enough to notice. For the first time in a while, eating didn't feel like another task to complete. It felt like a pause. It felt like a break. Sharon started paying attention after that. Not obsessively, not perfectly, just gently. She noticed how rushed meals left her feeling off, how slower meals made her breathing change, how her body responded when she actually gave it her attention. It wasn't about control. It wasn't about rules. It was about being more aware of herself. Stress hadn't disappeared from her life, but it stopped running every moment. Eating became one of the few times during the day when she wasn't bracing herself for what came next. It became a small act of care, a signal to her body that it could slow down, even briefly. Sharon realized something important. Her body wasn't asking for perfection. It was asking to be acknowledged. Mindful eating didn't change her life overnight, but it changed how she handles stress. Instead of pushing through it, she learned to meet herself where she was. And in a world that constantly demands speed, that simple choice mattered. Not because it fixed everything, but because it gave her a way back to herself, one meal at a time. Over time, Sharon noticed something else quietly shifting. She wasn't just eating differently. She was moving through her days with more awareness of herself. She began to recognize how often she pushed through hunger, fatigue, and stress without checking in. Slowing down during meals made it harder to ignore the other signals she'd been brushing aside. She didn't turn it into a routine she had to follow perfectly. Some days were still rushed. Some meals were still quick. But now, she didn't criticize herself for it. She simply noticed. And noticing was enough. Food became one of the few places where she allowed herself to pause without guilt. Not as a reward, not as a strategy, just as a moment where she didn't have to perform, rush, or multitask. That small shift carried into other parts of her life. She started stepping away from her desk for short breaks. She stopped eating while standing. She listened more closely to when her body needed rest instead of pushing past it. None of it was loud. None of it was obvious to anyone else, but it mattered. Sharon realized that caring for herself didn't have to be complicated to be meaningful. Sometimes it looks like giving your full attention to something simple and letting that be enough for now. If you're moving through life feeling tense, overwhelmed, or disconnected, this is your reminder. You don't have to change everything at once. You don't have to do it perfectly. You can start by choosing one small moment to slow down and reconnect. Even something as ordinary as a meal can become a quiet act of care. And sometimes that's where real change begins. Together, let's move from doubt to power, one story at a time.